on 25. There's a copy of our agenda back by the door as you came in. This is a work session of the Billings City Council. For anybody who's not familiar with our process, work session is a little more informal than our regular meetings. We don't make the decisions, binding final decisions, except perhaps to give some direction to staff. So you won't see a lot of votes tonight, and a little more informal procedure. We're missing 4 council members this evening. I think mostly to vacation. So attendance is not required at our work session. So we hope they have a good time. Before we jump into public comment on any item tonight, I'll ask Chris if he's got anything in the way of preliminaries.
So as you're well aware, we've been waiting on that certificate of fitness for the animal control former YVAS facility. We did receive that late last week. So I haven't had a chance to go through it yet, but that did come from the Department of Environmental Quality. It's a certificate of fitness relative to the use of the building. So we do have a little bit, some more other testing that we're doing, but that's where things are at right now. That's something we've been leaning on, waiting on for quite a while. So,
very good. Thank you. Then we'll open up for public comment on any item tonight, either on our agenda or not. There will be an opportunity for public comment when we get to each of the 3 items on our agenda. First, the equipment replacement plan, second, the capital improvement plan, and third, the cooperative purchasing agreement with Axon Enterprise. But if you've got to leave and can't wait until we get to that item, you're welcome to make your comments on those items tonight, or if you got something that is not on our agenda. And then at the very end, we'll have another opportunity for comment on things not on the agenda. So is there any public comment at this time? We ask that you come to the podium, keep your mouth close to that microphone and tell us your name, your address if you're comfortable with it. And just ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. And there's a timer that should pop up to keep your eye on, I think, on the screen up there. So go ahead.
My name is Warren Lee, 4145 Jans, been there 35.
Sir, if you would keep your, tell us your name again and try to keep it close to that microphone. That's it, perfect.
Name's Warren Lee, 4145 Jans, been there 35, 40 years. Damon Lee Smudge hit the ground, hit the sidewalks about 3 months ago. He's 17, unemployed, no place to stay, abandoned by family. I'm looking forward into city council maybe giving up 2 or 3 buildings this winter, get people inside. Mission ain't appropriate. Your tumbleweed will give them a box once a week, maybe some clothing and maybe some drying and washing. Police are of no help. They've been over to the house twice. They have to furnish 1 piece of paper to go 3 city blocks to housing to get them started. I have 3 more in the neighborhood ready to hit the street. 1 in a year, 1 in a year and a half. And Maxwell, he's on the corner. Damien lived in a trailer park next to Hallowell, the one next to that little school over there. And Eli. Eli's right now in 10th grade. These are drug-infested families. Kids get even close to 16, 17. They're on the street and they serve from couch to couch. City has open buildings you probably never sell, just like Pierce Packing for the longest time. Nobody's paying taxes on them. No one's using them. Give them up for the homeless. Water, gas, electricity, minimum. There's not going to be a whole lot of them. But let's face it, if you're not going to get them off the street, you could do like Dallas, New York, and the rest of them. When they're frozen to the cement, let's see you scrape them off. That's always a good looking sight to see. Another thing, when you look at the city buildings, they don't have to be pretty. They're looking to get out of the cold and out of the rain, basically. Throw in some cots, throw in some ratty mattresses. I went and got 2 more the other day. at least, if you're gonna do something about people living on the street, start with a building. You say they can go to the mission? It depends. They run drug testing over there if they think it's bad or if you're not religious. Been there. A couple years ago, I had an old lady over here on Avenue C or D, acted like a bum in the alley. Finally got the idiot that kept on using her shed for a home. But there again, police, they come over, they take down his number, says one sheet of paper could get him into emergency housing. He's still looking at a job. I go out with him on a daily basis.
And Warren, your time is up, so if you could just wrap up.
Let's leave it at that.
Okay, well, thank you, and thank you for
I
your
do want
focus
you
on,
to really think about giving up 3 buildings. They don't gotta be secure. The street ain't secure. But water, gas,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other public comment on items either on our agenda or not on our agenda this evening at this time?
Hi there, Peter O'Brien, 313 North Broadway. I'm here tonight to bring up some concerns with the encroachment permit program. As a business owner in downtown Billings, having the ability to operate a patio has been very beneficial. I feel that all the outdoor patio spaces throughout downtown add vibrancy and activation to our city on the street level. And those that operate on an encroachment permit also maintain that area at their own expense, offering clean and inviting spaces for downtown users to enjoy. Since 2020, Tier 2 encroachment permit fees have gone up 680%. That's 680% in 5 years. So for my property alone, that's $311 to over $2,400 in 5 years. This annual percent increase is not sustainable. The city and/or engineering department, which receives this revenue, should be exploring other ways to boost revenue if needed, rather than accelerating the tax burden on a small group of individuals through special assessments on property taxes. The most recent notice was from last September of 2025, which I assume was published in the paper. But since these permits only affect about 100 or so individuals or businesses, I think it'd be very feasible to mail and/or email these property owners directly regarding updates to the permit fees. My hope is this current council and the incoming representatives can revise the fee structure to better support businesses who are adding to the safety, activation, and curb appeal in downtown Billings. Thanks for your time. I look forward to continuing this later.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for operating excellent Spitz restaurant downtown on Broadway. Other public comment? Is there any other public comment before we close the public comment period?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, my name is Paul Clark, Southside Triangle. Try to maintain these meetings on a regular basis so I can be up to speed on discussions that we always seem to come up with agendas. And I've been guided in the right direction by one of our city workers about the website. The new mayor, Mr. Nelson, that was a close one. She's not here today, but I was gonna say, that's all right, you know. Let's welcome Mr. Nelson in, work with him. I think he's a man that has experienced a lot of how to run a business. He says he ran one of the largest casinos in Las Vegas for several years, and he's got a nice big building here at the Northern that's been around for 80 years, top notch. Looks like there's vans that are parked outside already. Maybe there's a music crew that he's come up with an arrangement to do the housing in that contract. When you're a mayor or city councilman, we have a couple of employees. Our city administrator, I believe, is one, and I think there might be 1 or 2 others that the council members are responsible for, and they ask questions to him. It's his job and others to provide that valuable information that I've come to learn to use. He's been here, city administrator, been here for 7, 8 years. Kalispell, I think I've heard him say once or twice. So he's well schooled in his field. The new councilman, I was going to invite them on. It looks like we don't have Mr. O'Donnell. Maybe Mr. Pittman might be here, some other new councilmen, but it's pretty light for this work session. Good run. Only thing is when I see close to 70,000 votes and you start breaking it down into council sections, it drops dramatically. And there's a reason for that. It's just a light turnout, or for what reason, I'm not sure, but there we are. Some of the things that we want to bring up on the South Side Triangle is crime and safety. And how do you do that? Police. Okay, and we do police. If we don't have the policemen, maybe we can get private security. Looks like there's plenty of private securities around. One of the things that I was concerned about is street lamps. It seems like on Fifth Avenue South, on down the Triangle to South Park, it goes dark. Everybody has porch lights. Guess who pays the bill? Homeowners or renters. That's something that I think in that tax breakdown, if you line item these items, one of the things that does come up is city lamps. Well, that's great, but if you don't have a lamp, what good is it? So we need to work on that. Another thing is capital improvements. I believe that's for the south side. I'm not sure they're talking about capital improvements. What's a capital improvement? Businesses. So we need to open up that 27th Street, State Avenue. It seems it's very neglected. King Avenue, yes. It seems to be right there by the interstate. We get a lot of volume. My time's up. I only got halfway through it. Blessings.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing no one standing up, coming forward, we'll close the public comment period. Move on to our first item, which is our fiscal year 27 equipment replacement plan. Nick, welcome to the table. It's all yours.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Nick Westberg with the Fleet Services Division, and I'm here to present our FY27 Equipment Replacement Plan. So our ERP committee members this year are the same as they were last year. Nothing's really changed there. Each member is responsible for their own department. So the Equipment Replacement Plan overview. The ERP is a mechanism to replace and fund the city's equipment with a useful life of 3 years or more and a value of $10,000 or more. ERP is based on a 20-year plan in which we establish guidelines for review consideration based off of mileage, hours, and age of the equipment. The ERP is funded through annual contributions, and we further establish replacement costs and salvage values. We do have provisions for upgraded equipment known as supplemental budget requests. Here's just some pictures of some of the littler equipment we have eligible for replacement. These are some of our seasonal pieces of equipment that have been eligible for a couple years. They've been deferred out, and now we feel that is a good time to replace them. Some more pictures. Landfill, they've submitted a dozer, a compactor, a chipper, and a grader. Sanitation has 6 sanitation trucks, and police has submitted 8 police cars. So equipment transfers, just because of a piece of equipment is replaced or eligible for replacement, the old piece of equipment doesn't leave the city. We try really hard to transfer the pieces of equipment to other departments that can use them. In this case, there'll be 3 that could possibly go from engineering to fleet, and then 1 that would go from street department to environmental affairs. So deferred equipment and replacements. At the start of this process, we started with 175 pieces of equipment eligible for replacement. Through our process, we were able to defer 125, leaving 50 recommended for replacement. Something to note, those 125 pieces of equipment that we deferred, a lot of those are seasonal equipment, or equipment that maybe, let's say, a floor scrubber that gets used every Friday. They are eligible for replacement, but they are still good equipment. So we decided to defer them. We always defer them for 1 year, and then we monitor them and see if we could replace them the following year. So FY27 replacement summary by department. This year there was 10 departments that were in our ERP. To the right of that would be the plan amount. All the plan amounts are in section 2 of the book. To the right of that will be our SBRs, or our supplemental budget requests. All of those will be in section 4 of the book. And then to the right of that is our city funding, which is basically the plan amount and the SBRs added together. So replacement by department. Solid waste basically makes up half of our ERP this year. That's about normal. Those big sanitation trucks and that landfill equipment, they're very expensive. Solid waste is followed by the airport, Belknap, and street and traffic. So equipment replacement plans, this is our 5-year outlook. As you can see this year, we came in right around $9 million. Next year, it's showing $22 million. That is because of those 125 pieces of equipment that we defer out. It always makes the next year's ERP look pretty big. It never really is, but it does look that way. And like I said, we do defer those pieces out 1 year so that we can keep an eye on them. And then after that, it seems to be pretty even. So governmental fund replacement. So these are our departments that contribute financially to the ERP. So the horizontal line will be the funding, and then our red line will be our replacements. The goal is to be as close to the blue line as we can. Everything does look pretty good there until we get to 2036 and 2037. We see a big spike there, and that is because of the fire department. In 2036, they have 2 fire engines that are eligible for replacement, and in 2037, they have 3 fire engines and a ladder that will be eligible for replacement. That's kind of one of those things of history repeating itself. All 5 of those vehicles, or 6 of those pieces of equipment, they were all purchased together in 2020, 21, and 22. So, and then our non-governmental, this is our departments who do not pay into the ERP. There is no horizontal line because there is no funding. As you can see there, it's pretty consistent, just like it is with our governmental. There is a spike at 2045, but that is 20 years from now. And it's hard to, every year we do an ERP, this line changes. So it's just something that we will monitor that. But again, it is 20 years out. So, and that'll do it for me. Is there any questions?
Very good. Questions? Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. In the past, sometimes equipment was taken to a local auction.
Yeah.
And sold.
Mhm.
Now you're doing it a different way online. Can you explain the difference between the two?
Very good question. Thank you. So 2 years ago, we teamed up with a company called Public Surplus. They're an online auction group. One of the reasons we teamed up with them is, well, the biggest reason, they don't charge the seller. They charge us 0%. If a piece of equipment hammers for $1,000, we get $1,000. Another reason we decided to go with them is they're a nationwide online auction. So they cast so much of a bigger net. We've sold probably close to 100 pieces of equipment on there already in 2 years. And I can think of probably 5 of them that sold in the state of Montana. Most of them sell, East Coast, West Coast. And we believe that we get a larger investment off of our assets. Like I said, the biggest thing for us was we didn't have to pay to sell our vehicles. Certain local auction houses, they charge us 10.5 or 11%. So, yeah.
Very good. Councilor Gulick.
Thank you, Mayor. And just, can you explain what the non-governmental equipment is?
Yeah, so that's the departments that do not pay into the ERP every year. So that's gonna be Fleet Services, my department. Uh, Basically, all of them except for the ones on section 3 of our book. So the governmental ones would be parks, code enforcement, animal shelter, fire, police, planning, library, and community development. So the non-governmental would be all the rest of the departments.
So most of the enterprise funds, water, sewer, which is why you see, in essence, we'd say their budgets can handle the cost of replacing the equipment when they need to be replaced. Whereas those general government side, property tax reliant sides are in this plan so that they're not struggling every year dealing with the consequences of what are the priorities in this year's budget.
So would every one of the non-governmental ones be enterprise funds paying for them?
Yep, I'd see Andy nodding his head. Yes, they're the enterprise funds.
Nick, I got a question for you, which is every year we see that major jump upward in the following year as a result of deferrals. That's a consistent pattern that always happens without exception. Is that a good idea? Or since that tells us that we are being unduly conservative in the time that we're saying the lifespan?
Yeah.
Is there anything to be gained by just being more accurate and extending out those lives, have predicted usage periods, so that we don't have as much coming forward that has to be deferred to the following year?
Yeah, good question. So if we look at the last page of section 1, that is our ERP replacement guidelines. One of the things I'd like to look at is class code 1022. So that's graders. So graders are eligible for replacement after 10 years. Okay. The city of Billings owns probably about 7 graders. 2 of them in particular I'd like to talk about. One of them is 0206. That's a landfill grader. It's actually in the ERP this year. It's a 1995 champion grader. So it was eligible for replacement in 2005. It is still in the ERP. It's been deferred year after year after year until we get to where we are tonight. It is 30 years old and it has 7,000 hours on it. So looking at that, I thought, yeah, we could go in here, we could change the graders to, bump up the meter or the time. But then if you also look, street department owns 3 graders. One of them is unit 1200. It's a 2016 grader and it has about 5,500 hours on it. If we have a bad winter and that grader is ran all winter, by the spring, it'll probably have almost as many miles as that landfill grader. So if we try to ask street department to make their grader last as long as as landfills for 30 years, it'll have, a lot of miles on it or hours. So it's a kind of a balancing act. The different departments use their equipment at different capacities, at different rates, at different levels. So we try to make this guideline friendly for all the departments. Does that make sense?
Sure, and you're the expert. It's far above my head. I just, given that we have that consistent pattern, I would encourage you to think about in what ways could we be more accurate because that's really what it comes down to. Even things like regular automobiles, I can't relate to graders because I don't have a clue, right? But I do know that I've got an 11-year-old Toyota 4Runner with 163,000 miles on it that has never had even one minor problem. And yet our schedule for replacement is, at least to be looking at replacement, is 100, as low as 100,000 miles. So that made sense, 30 years ago, obviously, but we wonder about it now. So anyway, those are just my 2 cents. Councilmember Neese?
Mayor, I agree with you in that. I would like to have seen this plan when they do it. If they're going to defer it, let's look at a 2-year plan so we can actually know what's coming in the next year. Because if you're already look at the equipment and say, hey, I have to defer it, well, then how long do you want to defer it?
Mhm.
Is it, if for instance, in the situation of the grader, if it's only got 4,000 miles or 4,000 hours on it, and you know you're not going to replace it till 7, and you know they're only putting 100 hours a year on it, well, then kick it out 5 years. Don't just kick it out 1 year.
Mhm.
So that would be my recommendation, to try and get this thing smoothed out a little bit more. Just kind of look at that equipment. That when you go to defer it, kick it out to where you think it's actually going to happen. If you have to bring it earlier, then you should bring it earlier when you find out the repairs and stuff are too much.
Yeah.
But I did have another question, Mary, but thank you for bringing that up, because we've talked about that year after year, and it would be nice to have that smoothed out. Couple of things. One is regarding inflation. I noticed a lot of things were adjusted because of inflation this year. So do we know if this plan, if everything has been adjusted appropriately for inflation replacement because of the, how high inflation ran for a few years ago?
So with currently right now, one of our ERP members went to get basically quotes on some garbage trucks. The dealerships could not give them a rock solid number because of all the tariffs and whatever else is going on. They basically said, take what the price is right now and add 12% to it, and that would be safe. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
Okay, so that's just specifically those, but what about the other equipment that may not be
Oh, like automotive?
automotive, whether
Yeah.
it's automotive or any other equipment and things like that, that isn't going to be replaced for 5 years, where we're putting money away every single year? Are we putting enough away every single year for all the other equipment that's listed on the ERP? Has everything been adjusted for inflation?
We are seeing more SBRs. We probably could adjust that. I think right now we're at 3 to 5%. We probably could adjust that up. That would be something we would have to talk with Andy about. The annual contributions from the departments would obviously go up. Everybody would have to be in agreement on that. But yeah, we are seeing the SBRs more this year than they were last year.
SBRs are
Supplemental budget requests.
for inflation, which I noticed a bunch this year. But my concern is only a few departments are correcting their equipment for inflation, and a lot of departments have not. And so when it comes time to replace them, we're going to be short.
Sure.
Wouldn't have put the funds away. And so I would hope that this committee can encourage, or maybe mandate, that every department has to look through their equipment and submit a supplementary report for inflation, just to make sure that we're keeping up with inflation on what's projected to have to be replaced.
Very good. Any other questions?
Mayor, I had one more
Okay,
specific
go ahead.
item, and this is really for the fire chief to ask him. In this report, we're moving from a Ford Fusion to a pickup truck, and it's cited because it's used by the deputy fire marshal for consistently visiting construction, transporting equipment, fire investigation equipment, things like that throughout the year. And so it makes kind of sense, Ford Fusion hauling a bunch of equipment around. I'm not sure how big the equipment is, and then I think it was some of the public education material, which is can throw in the backseat of something. That's not a big deal. But whatever heavier equipment you must be hauling. My concern is, if it's all year long, is this equipment and all these materials, is that going to be fine in the back of the truck, or are you going to have to also put a cab on it to protect it from the all-season weather and snow and stuff like that? Because if so, my recommendation would be to look, instead of stepping up all the way up to pickup truck, is go an SUV or something like that. Because I'm not really sure how important a pickup truck is versus SUV.
My mic work? Oh, it is working. It's hot. Thank you, Mayor, Councilperson Neese. Great question. So in the fire service, we are trying to get away from SUVs just because of the exposure that we're having. So a lot of those tools have carcinogens, stuff like that on them. So we want to make sure they're not stored in the cab of the vehicle. So that's a lot of the equipment that's in the back. Turnouts, all of our investigators have to have full PPE when they go. So we've tried to get away from storing that type of stuff in the vehicles. This is why we went to pickups. And we've done the same thing with our incident command vehicles. There's just a lot of contaminated stuff that we're trying to keep out of that space, so.
So the deputy fire marshal was carrying all that stuff in the Ford Fusion with him?
Yes.
Okay. So this will be a pickup truck probably with a cab then to protect or tonneau cover, something like that to protect the equipment from the weather, or can it be out in the weather?
Yeah, it'll have a topper on it. Most of our vehicles have toppers on them to
Nice.
secure
So
that.
this price included?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Any other questions? Don't see any. We'll open up for public comments, see if there's any questions from the public or comments. If you have anything, please come forward. And at this point, you know the routine.
With the expense of with a garbage truck, but it is it really beneficial to drive around and pick up cardboard? It just, no reason I say that is the amount of paper that gets shredded in this area. A lot of that's just landing in the landfill because there's just no place for it to go. I mean, you can only process so much of this. So if you can't get rid of your shredded paper, what's the cardboard worth? And is it worth it driving around with this high-priced truck picking this cardboard up? I don't know. Maybe, we sit and have these discussions and there's a lot of money involved here. I don't know. Something to think about. Thanks.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Other public comment? Is there any other public comment on item number 1, the equipment replacement plan? Any other public comment? Before I close the public comment period. No one's coming forward, so we'll close the public comment period. Item number 1. We're going to move on to item 2, council, if there's nothing else on item 1. Don't see anything, so we'll turn it over to our finance director, Andy Zeller, to talk about the fiscal year 27 to 31 capital improvement plan. Andy. We all agree that Nick did a good job for his first time. He didn't break down into tears once. Next time.
I do need help, yeah.
Maybe Nick.
Nick,
Nick, for your third time, do you want to come up
can you
and
help
give
me
him a
out, Nick? I'm getting it up there. Should have come up early and started it. Sharing, okay? All right. Good evening. So I have before you the version 2 of the proposed CIP. You recall, was here 2 weeks ago. And you guys had made some recommendations or some changes that you wanted to be seen in there. Those are reflected in the proposed CIP that's before you now. This is down from, I think, 520 million. It's 502 million over the 5 years at 128 projects. Year 1 at 103 million. As a reminder, those changes from the last CIP were to remove 2 projects, the Fifth Avenue Corridor and 21st Street Underpass. And then we modified the evidence facility lot expansion, changed the funding source there to the Public Safety Fund. And then we also, which I know wasn't discussed at that meeting, but kind of what I took from it was recommending putting some planning dollars in FY27 so we can really isolate and identify what that construction cost is, and then the construction in FY28. It's currently still in there at the same total amount. I think it was 1.3 million, but sounds like a realistic expectation that that would overall reduce once we had those designs. So where we're at, we've had a couple meetings with budget and finance. Obviously, the work session 2 weeks ago. There was a combined neighborhood task force meeting last week that we presented at, and then this evening's work session. And then we intend to bring it back in December for adoption. Our recommendation right now would be that council adopt it as it is currently proposed in version 2. So for the public, or you guys, if you forgot, you can find the proposed CIP at billingsmt.gov/CIP. There's also on there the interactive map that is up and running now. I believe it is, I was told 99% complete and accurate. So I'm not sure what the 1% is. I think that might just be just in case we missed something, but that link to that is on there, as well as the current adopted CIP and probably some other helpful information there. There were 4 areas from those prior meetings that largely questions from council that we wanted to focus on tonight. And I'm not going to go through the summarized CIP portions as we did last time. Not much of that has changed. But these were the 4 categories that we wanted to touch on this evening and get going there. The project funding source. There was some questions about identifying how projects are funded, and in the CIP, beginning on page 18, are the projects categorized by funding source. So I just have a snip right there. So I would encourage, if that is the root of your question, I would start there. Additionally, included with the staff memo as well as online at billingsmt.gov/CIP is an Excel spreadsheet that has every project that you can sort by project or funding source. If you're slightly comfortable with Excel, you can maneuver through that. I was gonna show it to you if you want me to, but I'm not confident it'll pull up and run, but we can do that if we need to. So
We take your word for it.
all right. So yeah, if you download it, it'll come up just like it's there on the screen, and you'll have filters there to drop down and again search by project name or by funding source and see all the projects by that funding source. Just hopefully a tool that is helpful for you. The next question we received was an estimate on the projected estimated average homeowner costs. In the CIP this year, we have some estimated future rate increases that would be necessary to fund the CIP. And to put some, I guess, more understandable dollars on that, there was a question about, well, what would this look like to the average homeowner? So this is the estimated projected cost for those public works assessments and your utility bills. See there, the current year, the average homeowner is about $1,400 a year. If all of the estimated rates came in as predicted and were approved, in FY31 would be about $1,900 a year. This is the average home. So the FY26 column is the average home, so the average water bill, average street assessment. And then it's just projected up by the percentages that are in the CIP.
Do you remember what that dollar value is?
None of these are a function of the property value. So, I mean, right, your utility bill is not a function of your property value.
I see what
nor
you're
is
saying.
your street assessment.
Gotcha. But this is the median, not the average, I assume?
This is, I believe this is average.
The average, okay.
And Mayor, we tend to use median on the property tax side of the equation. That seems to be a closer number, but when it comes to the assessments, I'm doing it for about 25 years, it's closer understanding averages, frankly, where the average family of 3 or just how much water use is happening, other usage. So,
Okay. Go ahead, Annie.
There was another question about safe routes to school. So I got some information from engineering regarding the safe routes to school plan that was done, the projects identified, and kind of what's been done and what's remaining. There's about $20 million in safe routes to school projects remaining. The challenging part here, well, I think there was a question about, how quickly is that going to get done? And I don't know the answer to that because there are a ton of projects in that 20 million, and they'll be tackled in a variety of ways. Some of them with the direct Safe Routes to School funding that you guys contribute or that you guys collect each year, but some of them in conjunction with other projects. Grand Avenue gets redone. Well, there's going to be a lot of the projects in that $20 million list will get knocked off there. Some of them through SIDs or other projects. So it's not just the $700,000 that's collected that's going to tackle the 20 million. So we have more work to do to kind of identify, I'd say, an estimate on when that will be largely complete, but we don't have that answer currently. I think I'm going to turn to Wyeth here. This next one. Do you want to go through this, or I can? Okay, all right. So I'll fumble through this one. I'm sure Wyeth will have to save me, but there were some questions about the planning dollars and the funding process that occurs that ultimately results in some projects in the CIP. And so I've tried to just distill down that process as simply as I could understand it. And it kind of starts with the long-range transportation plan that is approved by council every 5 years. This was most recently adopted in 2023. So they'll be starting that again in 2027. Then annually, the staff develop the UPWP. It's their annual work plan. And that work plan identifies projects based on a variety of plans that come to council, the LRTP being one of them, CIP, goals, safe routes to school, etc. So that comes to you guys at a work session each year and then is approved at a regular meeting. And then the annual work plan, as well as those identified in the LRTP, that's largely how projects get into the CIP, the planning project. So there's opportunities for input and direction there, obviously at the CIP as well, but wanted to make sure that was.
It looks like Councilor Kennedy would like to ask you a question.
Just a question, as you talk about the 5 years, doesn't the council have an opportunity to look at this every year and readjust it?
So
I think that'd be the work plan, right?
Yeah, with the annual work plan, absolutely.
So it just surprises me that when we started looking at this and we've made some changes and we're looking at, because it was adopted in a 5-year plan, I'm just amazed that people are saying you really can't do that. I felt that people on the council and with the council vote, we can make those changes each year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Those changes or the opportunity for changes are there annually with respect to the UPWP and the CIP. But the long range transportation plan doesn't come up annually.
Correct. I guess it would be better to have at least a once a year workshop with all of these fundings or proposals so we can update them and know exactly what's in there. When you look at the amount of 20 million of safe routes to schools, and then you look at some of these projects that we're actually spending planning dollars, even though it's federal dollars, we're spending those out and then we'll drop the project. Doesn't make sense to me at all. kind of a waste of money. And so what I would like to see, and I hope the future councils look at this, is have a workshop, discuss them before we ever get into the CIPs so people understand. And yes, there was a councilman that told me the other day, if you'd read the, I don't know how many pages, you'll find it somewhere in there. Well, that's ridiculous. It's better that we go through it with the staff so everyone understands. So when we come back, everyone understands and we know why we're removing different things. And I just think the public, I attended the meeting the other night with the task forces. It didn't tell a lot of people a lot of things. It just kind of was an overview. No one delves into all of this as much as probably the council. So, you know, just come back from a meeting and say, well, they were fine with it. That's not true. They don't know how much money is being spent or how much money's not or where those dollars are coming from. Because I was surprised at some of the projects, what was allocated as future dollars. I'm still trying to figure out who made those decisions. So I'd like to see some changes in this process.
Keep going, Andy. Go ahead.
I think that's all I've got for you guys, unless we want to go into anything I've presented there. Just again, remind you that obviously the opportunity for making adjustments is before you tonight. Although I guess we do have a majority here still. Then it'll be back for adoption on the 8th. That opportunity for any changes there exists as well. For you as well as the public, there is quite a bit online. So if you're maybe not sure where to go, I'd start there and poke around on some of the tools that we're trying to make available for you.
Okay, we'll open up for questions. Councilmember Boyette, Councilmember Rogers.
So Andy, you've been looking at this for some time, and you're our bean, official bean counter. Is there anything in here that you say, no, we shouldn't be doing this, or yeah, there's something else we should add? This is your opinion. It's your time to speak up. I don't want you to hedge and say no, but if there's something you say, no, this is really bad, give us your 2 cents.
Thank you. Nothing comes to mind that I think you should be considering removing at this point. And I guess I tend to think of it, I mean, the years that are closer to reality, focusing a lot, I tend to focus a lot more on those and, you know, realizing that something 5 years from now, there's likely going to be changes, whether that's the dollar amount, the timing, perhaps even prioritization. But when I look at the plan as a whole, there's nothing that stands out at this point, and certainly nothing in the next year or two that I think we really need to reconsider.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Rogers.
The slide you had with the median home impact, is that in our, or not this one, but online on the 190-page document, or is that something that
So
extra?
yeah, this is not in the CIP. The rate increases were, but there was a council member question about this, the last one.
I remember us talking about it. I just didn't know if it had made it. I didn't see it, so I just wondered.
I can send this out to
Would
you.
you
though.
mind?
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I would just add, this, in my mind, this is a very important upgrade to this conversation. And frankly, I think it ties in a bit to the deputy mayor's question. It's not that there are surprises or problems, and I'm sure I'm missing things, but if you think about pipes, right, we got 500 miles of each utility pipe under the ground generally. That's worth billions of dollars. You got pavement, several thousand miles of pavement, lane miles throughout the city, facilities, well over $100 million worth of facilities, ERP equipment. That's a great Chevrolet of a plan. I mean, covers equipment replacement. And the technology, the TRP, understanding how we move ourselves from where we were to where we're trying to get, so that pipe is being replaced at the sweet spot, thinking about asset management, right? You got billions of dollars of assets, and you don't want to replace that pipe too early, but you don't want to replace it after it breaks and floods a home. Same thing on the pavement. That's what we're trying to get, is to that sweet spot. And though it's uncomfortable to see what the rate adjustments are, that's the reality of the cost side of funding that plan. And so that's that whole balance. And in this case, especially on the capital side, this is where the lion's share of the expenses are for those enterprise funds. It's not people. It's exactly the opposite of what you see in police and fire and public safety. That's all people, predominantly people side. And this side, it's predominantly capital. So, thank you.
Councilor Bernice?
Thank you, Mayor. Andy, I pulled up the map and I can see what's not working is I can't select by ward.
Oh, yeah, the ward button wasn't working the other day either.
No, it wasn't working because when I put it on ward to see how much in ward 2 is, there's like no projects. I'm like, what? Okay. So, but that's not true. So what I did do is I zoomed in on the area. And so this is one of the things I'm always concerned about, and I hear from my constituents, is the Heights is a large group of people, pay a lot of taxes. And we understand that from year to year, we're not going to probably see a proportional share of what we're putting in being spent on the Heights. You got projects all over the city that have to be done. They sometimes will pay for our project. We pay for their projects. That's perfectly normal and understandable. But the concerning thing I have is when I look at this on a 5-year period, I would like to make sure that the Heights is getting some type of equality of shares, and that's not the case. Again, we're roughly just under 30% of the population. Now, whether that's 30% of the revenue, I don't know that. But of the population, we are. And so when I look at this, I see for the first year of only about 14% of the projects are in there. I narrow down into parks. I think we have 2 parks projects. I think it was 11% or something like that. Very, very small amount of parks over the 5-year period. Same thing with all over the entire project. So we're looking at the 5-year period. But 83 million will be spent out of 502 million. So roughly 16%. So still, we're really, the share, the Heights is getting less than half of what you would expect to see, in there. So how do we change this to where the Heights gets more of what they're putting into it, and it's not just going out to the city?
So I don't know how to answer your question exactly, but one of the things I would encourage you to consider doing, though, is pull out the airport from your total calculation, the 502. I mean, the airport is who benefits from.
We could
the
have
airport's
better
who benefits
filters.
from the airport filter.
If we got better filters on there where you can pull out airport, maybe pull out,
Plants.
some of the other.
We're going to become a 2 water plant town, but we're been a 1 water plant.
If you do some of those things, it would be better to be able to see that. So is there something that that can make this a little bit more user friendly to actually get that number where we can say, yeah, look, the Heights is getting X percent of this or that, or by department. Maybe we can just say, okay, give me everything for planning. That's what planning's doing. How they spend their money in the Heights. How's the how's parks spending their money? If we can just do parks, so we know where all those funds are going. Because I don't see where you can separate it by department.
That used to be a feature. That may be a button that is part of the 1%. Maybe we grew to 2%.
Okay. All right. So I just want my rough estimate. When I look at it, and people are going to look at this, they're going to use a rough estimate, and they're going to say, "Wait a minute, where is the representation for the projects in the Heights?" Because I sure don't see them, and I sure would like to see them pointed out a little bit better in the CIP, whether it's by zip code, whether it's by ward, something like that. So maybe you have a section in there instead of by fund, by ward. We know by ward. And of course, part of Ward 1 is in the Heights, and so we're working with Ward 1 and Ward 2 to try and see what's being spent out there.
The other comment I'd make on that is some of the projects are not necessarily mapped correctly. When you look at let's just say like some of those annual programs in Public Works, the annual water pipe replacement,
Right.
We don't know where those are going to be necessarily in 5 years from now, and so they're probably not mapped. They're probably mapped to the water plant or to BOC, just to a city location. So I understand what you're saying on some of those where like Parks and Rec, that's probably entirely mapped. And I did just pull it up. Actually, I'll change my screen share. You can filter by department.
Where is it at?
If you click one of the departments down at the bottom of the map, I'm going to pull it up here so everybody can see. Great. Change.
And then we'll go to Councilor Gulick.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I guess.
Well, once he's pulled it up and Councilor Neese is finished.
All right. So this is the map. We'll go to the beginning. BillingsMT.gov/CIP. Better than Google. If you go down here, there's an interactive map. Click on that. And this is what you'll get. So here's all the projects mapped in Billings. So if we want to just look at fire, you can click on fire or
I see.
parks there.
I see that now. It's actually at the bottom. Sorry, I was
Yeah,
looking where the filters were up at top, so we got filters all over.
There's filters all over this thing, yeah. The ward map boundaries are on there, but yeah, you're correct. Those are not working. So you'd have to zoom into your ward to find. And then you can click on the project and get the pop-up on, what's planned there. And
Yeah, so there's roughly $20 million in parks funding, and then you look at what's planned in the Heights. I just can zoom in to just the Heights area. We got 1.4 million for 4 projects. So quite a bit less than what the Heights is actually paying into the parks funds.
And I would, as Andy said, the park ones are probably some of the more refined ones, some of the most expensive investments. Pipes under the ground water, pipes under the ground sewer, stormwater system, which is a 75-year catch-up program from not doing that, and paver program. And all three of those are just bucketed as a dollar amount investment, where the departments each year really analyze what's the highest priority to maximize that useful life.
Okay, Councilor, I'll go to Councilor Gulick.
Yeah, sort of continuing the conversation. I think Councilmember Neese raises some good points, good other counterpoints, or things to keep in mind. My memory though also is if maybe we want to look at a 5-year, but maybe a 10-year time frame, because we were looking at where a lot of the city funds or that were allocated to us, whether urban transportation or CMAC. They were allocated to the Heights projects, related projects, and then the gas tax, the city's contribution towards Skyline Drive as well was. So it was like there was a disproportionate amount that was going to Heights-oriented transportation projects, and so we just need to keep those in mind as well, because it was balanced in the opposite direction at different points in the past.
No, I don't disagree with that. There are certain projects that are going to be, like the Inner Belt Loop was very, very large, but we also tied Skyline Trail in that as well as, but that was a 20-year, actually more than 20-year project that we were involved in, that we saw lots of transportation funds that were going to go to the Inner Belt Loop get diverted to Rimrock or not Shiloh, 32nd Street, things like that. So there was a lot of money that had been earmarked for the Inner Belt Loop, and then got moved around. And I think that's when the new gas tax got allocated to it. So then once that got built up enough, that was a catalyst to get not just the Skyline Trail done, but be able to get that build grant in order to do that, because prior council member had determined that was the way to do it, to get the funds allocated, their new funds, get them saved up, and then get this project going. And then it's great to get the Skyline Trail thrown in there with it.
Very good. Recognize Councilmember Kennedy for your question, and then I'll ask Debbie to come up. I've got a question for Councilmember Kennedy.
Yes, when I was on the Highway Commission, we did a 5-year, and those are projects that we looked at, that we knew the funding was there and we directed it. Then we also looked at projects that are out past the 5 years. The biggest concern as we start looking at things, and you have projects in here, CMAQ funding for 2030 with Yellowstone Trail. We've never talked about that. And those CMAQ dollars can use in a lot of areas, especially we used CMAQ dollars years ago on the Bench Boulevard project. And we do have a lot of projects out there that, is this the top priority in town, or is there something else? And I think we need to look at that. It's nothing, it's not looking at that trails aren't good. It's, there are priorities in this town, and we've got to start prioritizing and seeing what's best for the safety of the people in town. And those are pieces that we're looking at. I want to go back to, it's the green part. I have to find it. It's a South Park pool. You had $1 million for 27, and you have $9 million for 28. We've already discussed that we were going to do the bonding and everything. Why are we doing that in 28 instead of 27? And the other question I had is, there's $1 million in there for 27, but in 28 it shows 9 million. We talked about there was only $9 million that we can bond for the project. Is there another $1 million from somewhere? I'm not sure where that $1 million is coming from. It's a total of 10 million.
Yeah,
it's in the green section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, South Park Pool, as far as I know, has always been planned at 10 million and not a penny more. So I don't know if I interpreted that, but that
no,
has always been 10 million.
But when we talked about the bonding,
Sure.
we talked about that we only had 9 million. When we looked at 20 million for the building that we would bond out at Amen Park, and then we talked about the grounds and what we would put in for the hockey. And then we said there was only 9 million that was there to bond out for the South Park pool. So I don't want to get into this and then turn around and find out that everybody's planning on 10 million and there's only 9 million and we hold up a project. So if there's actually 10 million, where does the additional $1 million come from?
So the bonding capacity in the South District can support 10 million. Absolutely. I recall having some discussions about what the capacity of the district was when we were looking at the rec center. And I don't recall at that time where we were, but I know at one point we talked about issuing tax exempt bonds versus taxable bonds and kind of the impact of the interest rate and how that would potentially at a higher interest rate make the ability to bond less. But this portion of the project would be entirely tax exempt. It'll be government owned and run, so they can borrow at a lower rate. And then additionally, the South District saw a pretty substantial increase in value, even with the reappraisal this year. So their annual revenue is up.
So you anticipate 10 million. The question I have next is, can we put the 1 million and the 9 million in 27?
I would think the limit.
I can come back next week or when
Sure.
we come back.
I think the limiting factor there is going to be the reality of what we have for the capacity of staffing and consulting work to get the work done. But yes, you could say, I mean, as as Andy's saying, we've got the bonding capacity for the 10, just like we had the bonding capacity was 20 for the courts facility. And the council's been really clear on these two projects. They don't go over a penny, all cost in, soft and hard cost. You can do a courts facility for 20 and you're gonna build that pool for 10. If you want it moved up, my conversation with Andy, or not with Andy, I'm sorry, with Gavin and our team, with the other construction projects that are going on is what is realistic relative to literally getting the projects designed, bid, and built.
You know, I guess that's one of the things, Chris, I'd like to see design build. So we have a total project and cap it at 10 million or 9 million, whatever it is, and get it done. Because the kids that use South Park Pool really do need that changing area and stuff taken out, and it really needs to be changed. They don't have 2 years or 3 years going forward to get this all done. So
If this is all moved into 27 and for whatever reason, construction doesn't go in until into 28, there's no reason we can't just delay it or move it into 28, right? I think to your point is we want to try, if we put it all into 27, the point is the urgency is to try to get it done. But if it doesn't get done in 27, then the money's still there. It's not going away. We can move it into 28. So that would be the priority, is to try to get done in 27.
correct.
Okay. I see what you're saying, and I agree with that. I think that's not a bad way to put it, because the money is going to be spent. We've already all committed to doing that. So put it all in 27.
So I don't disagree with that. I would just ask that you guys and we both look closely, and this isn't unique to parks, same thing for Debbie, or anywhere where we've got a lot of capital projects, and look across that entire capital list. And we want to also set ourselves up to be successful, not telling everybody, I'm just making stuff up, that playground replacement, all these projects are going to get done. And then people get frustrated and upset that those projects didn't get done because we had too many things in the 1 year. So
I guess that's some way we should hear from Gavin to find out if that's a possibility, whether or not he thinks it can get done. So if Gavin wants to address that, that'd be great.
The only concern I have is I received a call today. There's a group getting together and they want to look at an indoor pool. And which will delay this project, which will be more money, and which we've already talked about. We do not have funding to do a year-round project. That was in the bond issue that was voted down a few years back. What we have set up is, and I worked a lot to try to get people on board, especially in our region of the South Side, to be able to get that going. And so when I look at that, I don't want it delayed. I want it to go as quick as possible. And I understand in the future, you know, maybe there is an indoor pool and competitive swimming and all of that. But for right now, this was a pool for the kids on the South Side that we should have replaced a long time ago. So
nobody disagrees.
Gavin, if
Decades
you
ago.
want to address, if you can, and we know this is being popped on you, so we won't make you sign in blood on any of this, but the feasibility for accelerating both design and construction into a single fiscal year.
Mayor and council, from my understanding, the design and build conversation seems to be the dominant conversation about this space. What I have never heard is the 11 of you saying that's the direction we want to go. I've heard anywhere from 9 to 13 million as numbers thrown around. I know that there is some designs out there. To speak to the $10 million, I believe there was a 400,000. Andy might be able to speak to this, or $600,000 that ultimately went into Parks Reserves. So that would speak to that above 900,000, or 900,000, or 9 million, excuse me. As far as capacity, is it doable? Sure. we could do that. If that's the wish of this body, we could do that. I would say that there would have to be some things that we would have to rearrange to ensure that we are meeting the deadlines that we say we're gonna meet. What those look like off the top of my head right now, I can't give you details to that. Preferably, I'm not in disagreement with Councilmember Kennedy in the way of there's a lot that goes into the maintenance mechanical side for South Pool every year just to keep it running. And so that's something we have to explore and have a larger conversation about, I think.
Okay, very good. We'll move on. Question for
Yeah, so for
Councilmember
Gavin.
Neese?
So Gavin,
On this topic, on this.
on this topic.
Okay.
So Gavin, is that something that you would be able to bring back to us when we adopt the CIP? So if we want to make a change to move this forward, you can let us know what the implication is going to be as far as having to throw this project in fiscal 27.
I can bring back better information, absolutely.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Very
Mayor,
good.
can I-
And if you can exchange any sort of emails before we get to December, so we have time to process it, not just on the one night when we have to approve something, that'd be ideal. So,
Mayor, can I?
Andy, you
Sure.
wanted to comment on this topic?
Well, not on this topic, but Councilmember Kennedy had mentioned also early in his remarks, and I apologize, I didn't say it sooner, about the Highway Commission having future year projects. Just as a reminder, this year, also in the CIP is a list of future CIP projects that are outside that 5-year window. So I think to your point, Councilmember Kennedy, if there were a project that you were wanting to move around, I think there's an opportunity to look to that list there as well.
Very good. So Debbie, my question for you is one of cost of maintenance of roads. The issue of maintenance costs is always an important one, perfectly legitimate one. I counted 7 main road construction projects in the CIP: Broadwater, Daniels, Elysian, Grand Avenue, Monad, Rimrock, and Wicks. Together, they add up to about $62.6 million. Divided by that 7, that's roughly $9 million each on average. And we have in the CIP more detail section the box titled Operating Budget Impact, which the idea is to capture this concept of cost. And on those, all of those have basically the same language. It says, quote, reconstruction of the road will decrease O&M associated with aging asphalt. The widening of the road will increase O&M for maintenance activities like sweeping and plowing. So there's some pros and there's some cons, which makes total sense in concept, but we don't know if the cons, cost-wise, vastly override the pros. You know, I can say to my wife, honey, I'm going to get a Ferrari because I'm going to save a lot of money on the duct tape I have to pay to keep my bumper taped to my car. And it may be true, but I doubt those duct tape costs are going to make up for the rest of the costs. So is there something that we can do? Because this is really the lion's share. This is when it comes to at least construction, that's where the money is. Adopt some default formulas that give a better idea than just this general concept that there are pros and cons. Obviously, the devil's always in the details. Nobody has a crystal ball and all that, but it seems that there must be some formulas based on how much square footage or miles, lane miles we're adding, something like that, that would allow us to flesh out those cost issues better and at least be more aware of those in the future. You want to comment on that issue?
I can comment on that. So as most of you know, we have started doing an asset management program that's a lot more sophisticated than how we've collected data and used it in the past. And so, yes, now that we have that asset management and it's been working for the last few years for us, I think we'll be able to pull a lot more information, on how much those things like snow plowing, sanding, sweeping versus some of the time we've spent on potholes and those things. So yes, I think we're starting to collect the data that we need to be able to do that better. And yes, we should be able to do that. We've talked about that with our trails as well, and we're trying to put those numbers together.
Okay, I think that's great, not just for this body, but also when it comes to deciding about what kind of impact fees we might want to have, even if we've got existing impact fees, to be able to justify those numbers, move them up, move them down, whatever. Having that data has to be good going forward. So, okay, thank you very much. Other questions before we go to public comment? We do want to make sure public has the opportunity to comment before we come back to the council. Okay, well, let's open up for public comment then on item number 2, or capital improvement plan. Just ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes and tell us your name and address if you're comfortable.
Kevin Nelson, 4235 Bruce Avenue. I'd like to propose a project. And this is, I'd like to have you think about King Avenue West and 24th Street South by the old Costco there. So if you're traveling east on King Avenue West, heading towards the interstate, the outside lane automatically diverts you right down 24th. As soon as you clear the intersection, you're back to a 3-lane going past Costco again, the old Costco. And I could never figure out why that through lane just wouldn't get done, because there's always a constant shuffle of people trying to figure out, when they figure out they're going down 27th and trying to shift over to get into that lane so they can go straight through out to the interstate. And I don't understand why that has never been done. It seems like a pretty simple fix. Take out the island and put a new structure in to handle the lights. Just a suggestion. The second one is, there's fundraising everywhere in town for all kinds of sports projects. You got, the ice, De La Stadium, MSUB, possibly a tennis facility. To pay 100% for another synthetic turf field at Amen Park without the soccer community chipping in, I don't think is right. I think they ought to have to be part of this process, just like everyone else in town, put a little skin in the game. And, that's essentially a pay-to-play facility when they fence it and it's all synthetic. I mean, the average person just can't walk in there. And then, you go back to the taxes. Yeah, my taxes went down about $1,000. Appreciate that. But there was one item that just jumped out like, whoa, $500 in street maintenance. And I'm just curious, what costs what do you buy with that street maintenance money? I mean, what do we get for that? And I'm thinking, man, if I paid $500, how much money are you guys taking in? And what are you doing with it? So I'll just that was an item that just sort of was eye-opening to me. Thanks.
Thank you. Other public comments? And if let's make a little line so there's less delay. If there's other public comment. Again, ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Tell us your name and address if you're comfortable.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Jeffrey Kettleson, and I live at 489 44th Street. I'm just a regular resident of our beautiful town and also a voting member. I've been coming here to a number of the City Council meetings, and I've been listening to budgeting, and I've been listening to projecting, and I understand that we need new equipment on a regular basis. But what I've never heard anybody talk about yet is what is the bottom line to me as a taxpayer? This budget that you guys are talking about right now, are you guys going to raise my taxes 2% next year? Are you going to raise it 6% next year? Are you going to raise it 20% next year? Or is it going to be a negative? I understand that the police department needs a raise, and I understand that the fire department needs a raise, and everybody else. But at the end of the day, the stewardship of our money here in our city lays upon your seats as we elect you to do. Now, we can sit here and we can talk all day about these kinds of grandiose designs, and we can argue over minute stuff. But, for what you said, when you go and talk to people like me, We don't understand this kind of stuff. What we want to know is, hey, are you guys thinking about raising it 10% next year? Or are you thinking about making it a 0% raise? You know, so that's where I think that all of you do a great job, and I'm not here to criticize anybody, but these are the things that are important to me as a resident. So for that alone, I think that is what I would like to hear more about. Anyways, thank you very much for your time.
Very good, thank you. Other public comment? Is there any other public comment?
And my name is Christy Drake, and I reside at 2950 Walden Place. And just speaking on behalf of trail projects, I know that there was discussion in the past about eliminating all non-safe routes to school projects from the planning CIP, and I'm hoping that you won't do that. It doesn't hurt to have the planning, to have trail projects in the planning CIP, because those aren't funded, and it is important to have things like that in the plans for future grant applications and eligibility for things like that. So I realize that safe routes to school is very important, and we agree with that too. But let's make sure that we're looking at a comprehensive approach to trail development. And so I just ask that you not cut the city off at the toes when you don't need to do that. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any other public comment before we close the public comment period? No one is coming forward, so we'll close the public comment period. Come back to council. Council, so you've heard Andy say the default here, staff recommendation is now to move ahead with the version 2.0. So that becomes the default. And that's what would come before us in December unless we'd give some other direction now. So that's really the question for council. Council, do you have any other questions for staff, or do you have any other direction to staff? Councilmember Neese.
So Mayor, I don't know if I don't want to be adding something back on the project that was removed by all the council was here and have it removed during the session, but I do believe these long-term projects should be on the plan, whether they're the 6-year plan or the 5-year plan. I think we as a city need to have some of these plans on there for, if it takes 20 years to get it done, then it takes 20 years to get it done. It doesn't hurt to have these on the plan. Just like the inner belt loop was on the plan for probably 20 or 30 years, who knows, it was on there a long time. And that project finally got done. So I know the council removed 21st Street underpass from the CIP last week, and I voted against it. However, I see the 21st underpass on the CIP under street maintenance districts, as Kevin Nelson was just asking about. What do you spend street maintenance district on? There is a section on page 15 of the CIP that tells you all the projects that money's being spent on. So my question is, why is that, if we removed it, why is that on the CIP?
Can you tell us the page number, because I did
Page
not.
15.
I'm sorry?
Page 15.
50, 50.
5, no, 15.
15.
Green. I sorted it by funds.
Under the street maintenance district fund?
Correct.
Okay, so these would be general state.
Are you looking at the Excel sheet or the?
I'm looking at the
Are you looking at the actual CIP document?
CIP document.
I am not. Yeah, I'm not.
Maybe I'm missing.
I'm not seeing it.
Okay, you're not seeing it? Okay, and maybe I'm looking at an older document then. That could be it. Okay, so you do see it's removed. All right, thank you. I just want to make sure.
Because I think, Andy, you would confirm the goal was to
Okay,
remove the 21st
my
Street
mistake.
underpass,
I was
right?
pulling up an old document. I guess I didn't pull up the new document.
BillingsMT.gov/CIP.
No.
That's where to get all your most current CIP information.
Did it come in our packet?
And it was attached to the
And
packet.
I opened up the wrong attachment. All right, thank you. My apologies. But I do believe those projects will come in. I believe that the new council will maybe look at these a little different. I'm hoping that next year we can add these back into the CIP.
And that would certainly be my goal to add back in the 3 projects that came out last work session, the 21st Street underpass, the Fifth Avenue Trail Corridor, and Cottonwood Park. And I'd make that motion, but I don't think it would pass, just looking around the room.
I would vote for it.
You would, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Councilmember Gulick would, but that would get us 3. I don't want to waste your guys' time. Anybody else join in on that? Makes me a little nervous. Obviously, we don't have people, a full council here either. So that would get us to 3, and it would die for lack of a majority. How about this option? You've heard staff or mention, we have this other category that is just beyond the 5-year plan category, just to not lose track of those. So let me at least make that motion that those 3 projects go into the list of future projects for each of those appropriate categories, but not be in the 5-year period. Those would be the 21st Street underpass, Fifth Avenue Trail Corridor, and the Cottonwood Park. So again, not in the 5-year period, but in the catch-all category of future projects. I will make that motion. Is there a second for that? Second by Councilmember Neese. And so, council, further discussion on that, Councilmember?
The motion is to direct staff to bring it, put it into.
Yeah, to put it in, and obviously, and the whole council could then weigh in the next time we get together.
I think, Mayor, this is a work session. I think we should wait for the whole council before you make a motion to make some changes that we had at a business meeting. So I would not be ready to vote on this to try to push something through. I think we need to have the full council and vote it up or down.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Gulick?
Just point out that the last time that was amended, though, it was a work session as well. I don't disagree that that was the full council, though, as well, but it was a work session that those were removed, not a business meeting. We did not. No, it was 2 weeks ago.
Any further discussion on that motion before we proceed to vote? Councilmember Rogers?
I would just second what Councilmember Kennedy said. I think the full council voted that out for a reason, and we need to put that back before the full council if we revote.
Okay, further discussion, Councilmember Neese?
It actually will come to the full council. So this is just to put it on there so the council can then look at it and address it and see the CIP with it, so it's not adding back in. The numbers will be in there so you can see the different numbers. So I think it is, especially in year 6, it's just going to be listed and with the estimated unfunded projects, just like there is a lot of those in year 6. So.
Yeah, just to clarify, this is would change the draft, but the final would have to be approved by the whole council.
And I think the important part of this is something that Wyatt said last week during the kind of towards the end of the meeting. This is really important to have these projects on some type of planning document in order to, if grant funding were to come along, then you don't have to get the council together to put it on there. And when the grant looks at some document says, you know, this has been on there for 20 years. They finally have been able to get this grant now to get it going. Those are the kind of things I think we need to send the message that, yeah, we know we don't have the money on it and it's probably ain't going to get done, but by some federal grant or some state grant that says, hey, now's the time to do it, let's move it forward. So I think having it at least, that's where I'm at least, I would prefer it on year 5, but I'm willing to compromise and go down to just the year 6.
Okay, further discussion, Councilmember Bria?
So Andy, do you have another page somewhere that you keep where you can stuff things that there aren't wanted right now or non-fundable right now, but someday they might happen?
So, yeah, Councilmember Boyette, in the CIP, there's this section, future CIP projects. This was new this year, and there's quite a few on here. These have no timeline. No timeline identified. Some of them may, within the department, have a timeline identified, but and then the costs here are very, very much ballpark costs and estimates. So this is where I understand the projects that you're talking about would go. It'd end up here on these lists. And there is something on there for Cottonwood already in that future projects
You know what
list,
page that is for everybody?
177 for parks. But yeah, they start on 17. Yeah, starts on 176.
And even one last, do you have any problem with that?
I don't have a problem with whatever you put on this list at all.
And obviously, if there was something already in there, there's no need to, so it sounds like Cottonwood is not necessary.
Yeah, Cottonwood's on there with what's currently in cash in lieu at 564. So it's up on your screen or up on the screen there.
Okay. If it's already in there, it's already in there. So we're really just talking about 21st Street underpass and Fifth Avenue.
I think there is something in here for 21st Street. It would not be the full rebuild. There was something in here as a placeholder, assuming there will be improvements needed, intersection improvements needed. And here it is. Transportation. You know how we can do this. 21st Street. There it is right there. Improvements if 21st not done, $1 million. Again, this is that future CIP project listing, not in the 5 years.
Okay, I need you to talk into that microphone a little more
Sorry.
clearly. And did you just say that one of those besides Cottonwood is in the long-term list already?
There is.
We don't want to do something that's not
Right.
necessary.
There's a line here that says improvements if 21st is not done. I'll zoom in more there. How's that? For $1 million. So this would be intersection improvements, notifications, that kind of stuff. This would not be the full.
Yeah, I'm talking the full project. So
Yeah.
okay.
Yep. So not the full project in there, but that's what that is.
Okay. So
if you wanted to amend that amount to what was removed, that would be fine too.
That I guess would be the motion is to add those in with whatever dollar amounts staff thinks is roughly necessary, because these are really rough estimates. You said leave it to the discretion of the staff, but to complete the project, not 1 million out of that's like a planning component. So actually for construction.
My understanding, and probably Debbie or Wyeth can talk to that, the $1 million is for improvements, not planning work, but it would be not to make it bigger so an ambulance can get through. It would be putting up advanced signaling notification.
Oh, okay. I was talking about construction.
Yeah.
So a much larger number. Okay. Okay. So any further discussion now on this motion? So we'll proceed to a vote. The motion clear enough. So potentially, well, I guess just the 21st and Fifth Avenue, because Cottonwood is already in the list, the long-term list, but not the 5-year CIP. So if in favor of that motion, raise your hand. Council members Gulick, Neese, Boyette, Cole, that's 4. If opposed, that'd be Rogers, Tidswell, and Kennedy. So that actually passes 4-3. Other discussion now or instruction to staff on the CIP. Councilmember Kennedy?
One last comment. Now that we see the unfunded ones, I'm going to go back through and look and bring it back and look at projects that we have sitting there that we can move over to the future projects. So it's on a plan and people can write for grants or whatever. And then we can start looking at what the true priorities are with what little money we have to be able to get done. But to leave things on and keep on saying, well, you've got 8 million here and 10 million here, doesn't make sense to me. But put them on the unfunded area and then it's in the plan, right? A federal grant or whatever. But just one comment on the 21st Street Bridge. We did, and I served on the over and under and around and all of that. 27th Street, we looked at 21st. We have studied that and studied that and studied that. What still bothers me is, once again, we're studying it and we want to spend out the rest of the money in that study process on a project that's never going to go anywhere. And I really have a tough time finishing these projects, these studies and everything, when they don't have a prayer in hell. So I guess that's why the 21st just needs to go away and we need to just stop where we're at. Yes.
Okay. Chris, you want to comment?
So I think the confusion I have is 21st was a specific initiative by a prior city council. The initiative passed by a majority of the elected officials. They wanted 21st Street, the analysis, the study, the work to be done. That's the work that's being done right now. Preliminarily, we heard a very high number to do the project. And arguably, we brought it to you while that process is midstream. So I just want you to know that that's the reason the analysis was done. That was very specifically a priority of the elected body when we removed the massive, what was it, $150 million 27th Street project. So it was not a staff or a planning or a federal directive to do it that way. We were following what the local policy body said to get in there and do that work to determine.
Chris, can I just ask you a question? The Councilmember Boyette. Councilmember Kennedy seems very confident that it's a boondoggle. I have never seen literally a sentence of planning on the 21st Street underpass. So I don't have any idea what is contemplated. Could we, if we just jettison the planning effort now, could we save some real money?
You have to ask the planning side of it, whether it's Debbie or Wyeth, where we're at in that process.
Okay, and I don't know if they're prepared to comment, but that's the obvious question, right? If it's a waste of money, should we abandon ship? But if we're 98% through, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. Andy, did you weren't raising your hand? No. Okay. So staff can maybe send us an email on that. You know, we don't have to resolve that tonight, but that was all. Okay. All right. Okay. Council, let me ask you a question that was posed by Kevin Nelson, and that's about the the Amon Park soccer complex. And I'm not sure what page that is, but it's roughly $1 million for a new turf field, which I think is a great idea and needed and brings a lot of money into our community, as will our courts complex, as will the ice complex. But it is a little strange that we're not expecting any skin in the game from the public or the soccer community, who did pay for a lot of Amon Park for the original development. Is that okay with you? I would support some reasonable but fairly modest contribution, not to exceed 20%, just to reduce that number, free up other money in Suburra. But I don't want to go down that path if other council members don't agree with that. Councilmember Neese.
Mayor, I think if Amon Park is soccer were here, they'd probably tell you that, like you say, they bring a lot of outside entities in here and really boost the economy when they come. The hotels get filled up with a lot of their things. So having that soccer field is really, it really is the mission of what the TIF is supposed to do, is to grow the economy, grow the tax base, things like that. And so by having them funding that, that's going to be a direct boost to our economy. And so I don't see that necessarily need to be done. It's a city park, it's city property. And so, I mean, you sure ask them if they get any extra funds if they want to contribute, but I think they probably put in a lot of other things into it as well besides that. So I would say no, I would be fine with them.
Okay, and I misspoke. I was referring to old money, old numbers, pre-inflation. So it's on page 72 is your detail sheet, and it's set for fiscal 29 at $1.8 million. So I was quite a ways off there. If it doesn't happen this year, I would still encourage us to think about that. Certainly, if there's any sort of cost overruns, that the private donors would be the logical source for that. So, but any other discussion on that question? I won't make the motion if there's not support. If there is broad support, I will, or ask you to. Councilmember Boyett.
I think it would be better to have somebody from Amen Park to address that rather than us. They would know what they can do and can't do. I mean, I'm not going to support anything until I hear the other side of the story.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion on the CIP? Councilmember Neese.
Mayor, I guess the only thing I would suggest on this is maybe get TBID involved. Maybe, I don't know if they can help with that, because they're really, the hotels are and that are going to benefit from that additional soccer field. So maybe ask TBID to see if they would help contribute to a portion of this.
Okay, any other discussion? Yeah, okay. All right, well then we'll move ahead and call that a wrap on item number 2 if there's nothing further, and move on to item number 3, the cooperative purchasing agreement with Axon Enterprise. Kevin, I'm assuming. Thank you, members of the public who are here for the CIP. Or Brandon, Captain. Okay.
I'm just getting you started.
He's the one who knows what he's talking about.
Unless you ready to go. I know. Aha.
Make these chairs for you.
All right, Mayor, members of council, thank you. Appreciate the time this evening. Here we go. Let me do this right here. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
So this will just be a fairly short presentation on the cooperative purchase agreement with Axon Enterprise. It will come before you on the 8th of December on consent agenda. But before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of this, I just need to take us a little time travel back. That in 2020, there was a CPSM report that looked at the efficiencies in the department, also made quite a few recommendations, a little over 100 recommendations to improve the efficiency and performance of the department. Earlier this year, we were in front of you at a work session presenting an updated version of that council presentation for CPSM. They came in and they had a limited scope preview and reevaluated portions of the initial report. And if you all remember that there were some things that were identified largely due to inefficiencies in the department, whether it be IT infrastructure, the department not capitalizing on it, aging IT systems. Also, one of the big things that came up was out of service time. And that out of service time for the officers affected all of the operations, everything from 911 response times to just overall availability to be able to respond for calls. And so this is part of our strategic change in those to improve efficiency in our operations and leverage the technologies, because ultimately we're laggards, that the police department is on outdated systems, and quite frankly, we weren't leveraging the technologies we had like we could. And so we're looking forward to moving forward with Axon to try to get us up to date and move into where we're leveraging those technologies to decrease out of service time, increase the amount of times that officers are available for calls for service, affects public safety, and just streamline and workflow management, essentially. The reason why this contract is timely is there's really not a more perfect time for us than right now to make this maneuver. We're currently on an aging body-worn camera system from our current vendor. Our digital evidence management systems are pretty much non-existent and broken. And regardless of what happens with this contract moving forward, we are going to have to reinvest even into the aging system that we have. So now is a good time for us to look at our options, make a decision, and move forward. So one of the things that I'm just going to talk about here first, we're just going to talk about some of the gaps and the problems that the department's facing. While records management, we talked about this before in the past, specifically on the CPSM stuff. Records management is not part of the scope of this contract. However, we are actively looking to find this as a solution. However, the other portion that we're dealing with is the digital evidence management piece, the massive amounts of data that we generate from body-worn cameras in cars, surveillance videos from places of business. That is what takes priority right now. That's what's impacting our operations mostly. So we are actively working to try to solve that portion of the tech issues, but that's kind of like a phase 2 portion. And I just wanted to bring that up to kind of keep that in the front of everybody's mind as we move forward through into next year. So one of the areas and gaps that we have had several discussions about is some type of internal affairs software. We generate lots of commendations, complaints that we have to investigate with officers. Anytime an officer uses force or we are involved in a pursuit, there's an internal review that occurs. And more times than not, that those internal reviews are tied to the body-worn camera in-car video footage. And so this year, you guys approved in fiscal 26 budget, we did have a line item budget approved to purchase software for internal affairs tracking. Through our review process of meeting with other vendors, one of the Axon products called Standards is the one that rose to the top that we would like to go to anyway. So this starts to kind of be a bundled deal for the contract. Some of the benefits of a internal affairs software, just it streamlines that workload for command staff to be able to review those. But it also allows infrastructure setup for us to kind of start looking at early warning systems. It allows us to kind of track in place maybe officers who have a disproportionate level of use of force or numbers of use of forces compared to, and we can look at other factors and see if we have at-risk officers who need intervention and hopefully find those early before we have an incident. So that's some of the internal affairs issues. One of the things we deploy tasers widespread throughout our department. Almost all of our patrol officers carry them. For us, the taser is a less lethal option, especially in lethal force situations where we can de-escalate and have another force option. These tasers are hands down a lifesaver. This is a life safety issue. And regardless of any contracts moving forward, the tasers need to be a part of the department's use of force program. Currently, we're deployed with the Taser X2s, which at the end of this year, 2025, they become unsupported by Axon. We do have some ERP fund money for FY26 that'll mature. But one of the things that has been changing, just much like Microsoft, where you used to buy just packages and you have to go to individual licenses now. That's where Axon's pricing structure has gone to with tasers and most of their products is now it's subscription based. So for what we have for ERP, it's going to change to where just subscriptions with tasers. So we're having to look at that and replacing those in the very near future because they're becoming unsupported at the end of the year. So those are some of the issues that we have with the gaps with the current taser system. Again, that's an Axon enterprise product. When we talk about our body-worn cameras and our in-car videos, our current vendor, we've had our body cams for almost 5 years now. Battery life is about 6 to 7 hours. Our officers have 10-hour shifts, and they can only dock them inside their vehicles. We have longstanding issues with syncing issues. The workflow process for officers to enter the digital evidence into the system is all manual, and it's time intensive. Also, there's not an automated pathway to our server systems. We have to physically pull each video off, burn it to a USB, put it on a CD, then it goes into physical evidence. It's suboptimal is what I would say. Again, That system is aging, and the server space that we hold for those, the server connection between our local server and how we use to try to download that is broken. The two vendors that we have, we've purchased an API, and for the last 3 years, it's been unsupported. They haven't been able to make it work. So we've been essentially unable to use that system to its full capacity in any way, shape, or form. So those are aging systems that need to be purchased again, upgrade to servers, hardware, software. So the cost of this stuff is coming anyways, and we've been planning for some of that. Let me back up into the body worn cameras. So some of the things that we look at with the new emerging technologies is some of the gaps we have is that the triggering activations. When we look at a digital evidence system, we want to look at from the moment that we try to capture that digital evidence to the moment that it ends up with prosecutors and what that looks like. And currently right now, an officer has to either activate their lights or physically push the body worn camera to get it to activate. If they're not synced, they won't activate simultaneously. And so when you might turn your lights on in your car, if it's not synced, now you miss your body cam footage. Officer gets out of the car thinking that his camera's on, and then we get to the end of the incident, and then we don't have any body cam footage for evidentiary purposes. So some of the things that we don't have in our current system are the ability to automatically activate on certain triggers, as well as when we try to route that digital evidence to be saved, the officer has to manually enter case numbers and associate numbers with digital evidence. Again, back to the cumbersome process that I had discussed, and we won't get into too much more detail about that. Then when we talk about the gap of a digital evidence management system, this truly is the nucleus of the issue that the police department faces is without the hardware, it's where does this stuff go and how do we access it? How do we leverage it? How do we utilize it? And currently it's creating a significant amount of work. We have numerous workflow processes for different types of digital evidence. Some of it is manually entered by the officers. The other portion of it is pulled by evidence technicians. We have 2 full-time FTEs doing nothing but burning DVD discs, USB drives. And as you can imagine, a process like that is prone to errors in the process as well. So those are some of the issues that we have. Costs, we spend about $15,000 a year in just USB sticks and CDs to put digital evidence into a physical location. And that's one of our big challenges. The other portion of that is when you're dealing with digital evidence in the physical capacity, it really limits the officers and the investigators' ability to analyze that evidence. So they have to either burn another copy for themselves so they can look at video, watch what happened, or they have to wait till they put it into evidence. And then same thing with prosecutors. They have to physically make another copy of it and hand it over to be able to view it. So the ability for us to access that video at will, to leverage it and use it for investigative purposes is significantly limited for us. So I created a few process maps, and this is what our current process looks like. Now, I'm not going to break it down into very detail, but this is you've got multiple different processes for ultimately what you have is the same thing as it's digital evidence, whether it comes from the body cam or it comes from surveillance video from Walmart. It's all digital evidence, should follow the same process, which it doesn't with the police department right now. And what I would correlate it to is if we're talking in terms of like a manufacturing company, like a car maker, right? They call it cost of poor quality. This would be the equivalent of us trying to put the tires on at the beginning of the build and then take them off again and put them back on and take them off and put them back on again. And that's what ultimately we're doing with a workflow process that happens on a daily basis. We are creating evidence as we speak. There's an officer out there right now with his body camera on, and that process is very complex and time intensive. Just today, I took just a quick moment. I took our top 8 commercial properties, our Walmarts, Shields, our big retailers, and I a real rough calculation on numbers of calls that we respond to that would likely create some type of DVD or digital evidence from them that would require an officer to go back after they dealt with the original call to retrieve that. And year to date, from January 1, we're over 600 lost hours in officers trying to go back and recover evidence. So that's a third of an FTE, and that's just the top 8 of our commercials. That doesn't include the digital evidence that comes from a PFMA victim from her phone that they want to email to the officer, who then has to manipulate it and put it into the system. And so really, I just wanted to paint the picture. Very complex. We're wasting man hours. It's causing out of service time. There's a much better way for us to do that with leveraging some of these technologies that are available to us. So when we talk about solutions, one of the things that we looked at when we were looking at vendors is one thing that's important for us is that can we get services from one place that follows one workflow that we can access and utilize from it? And that was one of the things that we looked at. So the IA software, Axon has that standards software. It's front end user configurable for us, and it incorporates into all of their other systems. When we look at the tasers, the Taser 10 upgrades, this basically keeps us in the cutting edge taser technology. Here in Montana for officer safety, instead of having 2 cartridges, we now have 10. They're single probe deployment, so we don't have to worry about the thicker clothing right here in Montana, and we can have up to 10 shots in different locations to try to incapacitate someone so we don't have to use lethal force. Also, these tasers are integrated with like the body worn camera systems, as well as the in-cars. And when I go back to like the body worn cameras and the triggering activations within this contract, there's what they call it signal. But what that is that when an officer draws their pistol or they draw their taser, it's an automatic activation to any body worn cameras in proximity and turns them on. So it ensures that we capture a critical incident. They also have the feature for you drive by, like Highway Patrol has Axon. So if we drive by a traffic stop that they have their cameras on, ours will automatically turn on as well. So through all of Axon products. So it increases the efficiency and the automaticity. So the officers don't have to worry about, did I push my button? Did it get turned off? It's also, if I have mine on and you walk into the room, it will also turn on. So we make sure that everybody has their cameras on and we're getting things from every angle. So if we can remove the manual portion of these activations, we're just going to have better evidence in the end, and it's less things the officer has to worry about, better efficiency on our end. Included with this is what they call auto tagging, which means that there's an interface that Axon will provide that connects to our CAD system. What it does is it recognizes when I make a traffic stop or I'm on a call, and it will automatically put the call type and the case number associated with that video. So the officer no longer has to manually enter that and go get it. This data now goes into the cloud. It will upload from the body camera, and it uploads from the car, where currently the officer has to leave the streets, dock their camera, and then wait for it to upload, or they have to park their car at a facility for it to upload. This will all occur while the officer is driving around the community. When we get to some of the pricing, we'll talk about how some of the benefits of the local 5G system, we can capitalize on that as well, not only financially, but just as a system everywhere. And then that final nucleus piece is a digital evidence management system that Axon is built on evidence.com. And so everything, the tasers, the standards, the videos, the cameras, all of that goes into that system, which is accessible to the officer. So in terms of like streamlining that, where an officer would normally have to tag it, burn it, it just automatically goes up there and they just log in and they say, mark this and save it as evidence. When you have a store like Walmart who has video surveillance days later, there will no longer be any return calls there to collect the evidence. The officers will email them a link. They click on the link. That person will just upload it straight to there. The officer comes back to work after days off, and they have new evidence in their case file. Everything will be centralized. Also, as we look forward to the new RMS systems, we can point the new RMS systems to evidence.com. So when you log into the case, you can see everything within the case itself. So quite a bit of efficiencies there. This next page here is, I take you back to the previous process map. This is the process map for everything. So where we had 3 complex processes, this is what a process would look like with Axon. And that is beneficial for us because that reduces officer out of service time, keeps them on the streets, both before and after shift. Also, we're not utilizing evidence staff for 2 full FTEs to try to burn stuff. When we try to give this information to like prosecutors, it's the same in reverse. When they make a discovery request, instead of having staff burn DVDs and transport them physically from one location to the next, it's an email with a link. The prosecutors can access the link. They can download all the digital evidence that they want for their case, and we're done. And so that's the benefit of being able to leverage some of these technologies inside this contract. So we did a cost-benefit analysis to see what this looks like over a 5-year period. Overall, the contract with Axon is just a little over $3 million for 5 years. And that gives us tasers. It's an officer safety bundle, so you get tasers, body cams, and then the software packages with it. We also get a training package for virtual reality for officers to continue to get regular training with the tasers with like real life scenarios through virtual reality goggles. That's all part of their package that they're providing. And then fleet services, so replacement of all of the vehicles for camera systems. So currently today, I have some soft costs in there as well of like some of the FTEs, but we're spending roughly $385,000 a year in the system that we have that isn't working for us. If we do nothing today or with this contract at all, if we just stay status quo and say we're just going to reinvest in the system that we have, our 1-year costs are going to rise to a little over, a little over $500,000 a year, with about a $3.2 million 5-year cost for us if we do nothing. If we tried to upgrade with our current vendor to try to get somewhere near the capabilities that we can with Axon, we're about 3.3 million, and I stopped counting after we got to that point because it just wasn't worth my time and energy because there were other things. There were other servers that we needed. We just learned the other day that if we try to upgrade our current body cams, we're going to need another version of a server on site that we don't have. So the costs just continue to accrue if we try to double down on what we currently have that isn't already working. However, when we look at the Axon contract, it is all inclusive of the taser, body cam, the software support systems for what we're using to integrate. It also places us in a position to leverage future AI technologies that they're developing, that they have deployed now. And it takes us from being laggards to the majority to be able to strike where we can be progressive in the police department. And instead of trying to dig ourselves out of a hole, we can pick our head up and we can look at taking ourselves into the future with it. One of the cost savings that we would be experiencing on top of this is Verizon is going to give us basically an incentive, and what they're basically reimbursing us for the Cradle Point routers that we're purchasing from Axon to place in the cars. And this $94,000 is going to be placed onto our Verizon bill, and this covers about 2 years of any data packages that we'll be getting through Verizon. So our data packages, all the upload of this digital evidence is all covered for the first 2 years in the incentive from Verizon. We did have a tech meeting with Verizon. They have upgraded all but like 6 towers in Billings to a new 5G wideband. And so Billings is actually a great spot for us to transition to uploading all the video directly from cars, directly from the body cams. As far as being able to pay for this, if Andy's math is correct, we're sitting right now on a little over $900,000 in ERP funds that were already being put away for purchase of tasers, body-worn cameras, and in-car replacements in fiscal year 2028. So years 1 and 2 will be covered by the remaining portion of that those ERP funds. And then we have an application in with the Bureau of Justice for a specific body worn camera program that's designed to upgrade as well as enhance your current body worn camera systems. We're waiting on word for award. If for some reason we are not granted this award for this year, we will figure out why we didn't get it and try to reapply again for that next year. So there's some things that the department is doing to try to help find some of the funds to cover for this. But what it really comes down to is that the value that we get out of some of the increase in pricing in the out years in 3, 4, and 5 that we don't have the money identified for yet is it's this increased efficiency in officer time and workflow process for us. All the things that the CPSM had kind of pointed out. And that's where some of the commitment comes from council in the out years in 3, 4, and 5 is that we would like to send a message that we're committed to the efficiency and the leveraging of some of these technologies when we plan for the fiscal funding in fiscal 28, 29, and 30 as we go forward. So with that ends the presentation. We have Jared Kleinbart with Axon here. He's available for any questions if you guys choose. I'm also available for any questions about the contract if you guys have.
Very good. It's Jared?
Jared Kleinbart.
Would you raise your hand? We just want to be able to, okay. So the representative is with us and we'll invite him to the table if needed. Council. So questions for the captain, and just reminded everybody Kevin was in a different life, captain of internal affairs, so I'm sure he has some knowledge of a lot of this. So Councilor Boyack, Councilor Tidswell, Councilor Bernice.
So this Axon Corporation, how many other kids in the block play with them? Is this a big deal across the nation? Or are we buying a single product from a single person? And what's the likelihood in 5 years they say, hey, we're not going to do this again because we're back in the same boat?
Yes, so, this has kind of been a little journey for me to learn, but really when I look at the features, Axon is really the game in town. There are other places, but Axon nationwide is, when you look at their technology, they are the game in town. Montana Highway Patrol just went to them. Missoula has been with them for many years. Helena is on board with them, and Bozeman is in the same phase and process that we are in expanding their capacity and capabilities with the Axon systems. This is the only thing really Axon does, and they just are really good at it. We have an officer who came from a system that used Axon, and his comments were just, tell me what you need me to do and who you need me to talk to, but we need to go because the system just works. And that's something that we need. And all the money and the investments that we've had over the years into systems that aren't working, that's something very important to us.
Sure.
Make one comment. This weekend, I was cleaning the basement, and guess what I threw away? A whole pile of CD discs. And I'm thinking, my computer doesn't even take them anymore, and that we're still using it. This is archaic. The future is right here, and the cloud is right here. So I encourage the council to go ahead with this because that's crazy. The other item you really brought up good was that the interface between us, eventually all the stuff's going to end up across the street. Instead of dragging a piece of plastic over there, this is awesome. So thank you very much.
Very good. Councilor Tisdale? Oh, is your
130?
Yep.
So go ahead and ask it again, just so anybody listening will get it.
Okay. So you get new tasers and body cameras, month 1 and month 30. Is there an upgrade there? I mean, if anything happens between one, you get upgraded as well?
Yep. So Jared could add more, but my understanding is the whole idea with the subscription and their business model is that they will keep us in the newest, greatest stuff during our contract. And any upgrades, any changes to stuff, if there's an upgrade to the taser model, that we get that. If there's an upgrade to the body worn camera with features, we get that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Very good. Councilor Bernice?
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I'd like to hear that from the manufacturer because I've sold subscriptions, and typically they say the same, but it doesn't actually mean what it says. So it's a fine point. So we can talk about that. I had like a page and a half of questions, but I'll try to address the ones that came through the presentation, and I'll probably talk to you about this afterwards. To follow up on Councilmember Boyette's question, and you mentioned a lot of different cities in there, but how long have they been in business?
I'd have to ask Jared about how long
So,
Exxon's been in business.
Well, did your committee look at, how many people are on your committee that looked at this whole process?
How many from the department?
Yeah.
So we've been, probably for the last 3 or 4 years, we've been in a technology review.
Jared, why don't you come on up? We don't want to make you feel bad back there, so.
So we've looked extensively at options. Obviously, Axon is the only one who produces a electronic control device. So we're limited into who we could look at there. But in terms of really vendors out there with quality body worn camera digital systems, Axon is far greater above everybody else. And then our current vendor is what I would consider to be like a number 2.
Okay, current vendor is who?
Motorola.
Okay, and so, so you had your department, and by the way, I'm glad that you guys are doing this because the chief knows I've asked some questions about certain things, and the data is just so hard to get, and I hope it comes up. So I would like to, since we have the manufacturer or the sales rep, or what do you, sales rep, okay.
And Jared, if you can make sure you got a microphone there.
Yeah,
Our
so-
technology might not be as good as yours, but.
So I was asked about
There you
the
go.
replacements and subscriptions, so.
Just have to keep the microphone pretty close to your mouth when you
This is a
speak.
5-year agreement, an officer's out on patrol, he gets his camera damaged. Who pays for the replacement on that?
No one pays for replacement.
Okay, so they just signed on a new camera.
Yeah, the requirement from the organization is a letter on company memo letterhead that states the situation, officer so-and-so jumped into a lake to save someone, all Axon equipment was damaged, we'll replace all that at no cost.
Okay, and service support, all that's included throughout the 5 years?
With the 60-month agreement, you have what's called a customer success manager. This is a US-based individual that's assigned to your account. So they handle RMAs, support requests. They also do the 30-day updates to the software. So every month that we do updates to the system, they'll meet with a representative from the PD to say, here's the latest updates. They'll help with roles and permissions, retention categories, making sure the system is working for the organization specific to their policies.
Okay, year 2, new taser comes out. You're going to send out new tasers to all the officers?
The technology assurance plan, we call it TAP, is designated for the body camera as well as a taser into the fleet. These are optional additions. You can take them 6 months prior to that 30-month mark or 6 months after, and that's the latest technology at that time. The taser in the fleet is at the 5-year mark because the useful life of that, it's not being used like every day like a body camera. So that's why those are the 5-year mark. Body cameras are the 30-month mark.
Okay, so sorry, you said a lot of the sales pitch, which is I'm lost, so I understand that. So again, in year 2, the new taser model comes out. Is that new tasers can be sent out to all the officers?
If in a 5-year agreement, in 2 years, a new taser comes out, the new taser would not be eligible until year 5.
Until year 5, but the body cameras would be eligible in year 3?
Every 30 months. Every 30 months will be a new body camera as well as the mount.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. And then, sorry, I've got my bunch of my little notes here. Okay, so Captain Wills, the captain, right? Yeah, okay. You mentioned that 2 FTEs and a third FTE of an officer is going to be saved by doing this. As far as reduce amount of time and having to do that, which is great because we need more time on the officers on the street. And so in your comparison model, you compared the annual cost of what it's going to be now with 2 of those FTEs, I understand, and then what the new cost is going to be. And so are you going to reduce 2 staff in the police department? So we're really not saving additional 2 FTEs.
No. So one of the recommendations that CPSM had was, one, to develop a discovery unit, as well as to leverage your evidence staff to go out into the field and process scenes. those 2 FTEs will be diverted back towards those purposes where we can leverage them in other places. So yes, those are soft savings and efficiencies, but we can have them do other work that officers
Right.
would be
But
doing.
when we're comparing the cost, we're really not losing. We're not going to save any. We're not spending more time on it, and we're going to gain some additional services for the public, but we're not going to save any additional money because we're keeping those FTEs.
That is correct.
Okay, and so when you look at the cost overall, I think we're at $1.8 million over what we're currently doing. And based upon we have, 900,000, roughly a little over that, and we hope to get a grant, but we don't get the grant, then we don't have that. So what's your plan to fund the program? If after year one, let's say you don't get the grant, what do we do?
So I think we have enough money to cover the first 2 years for sure. There's, when you look at the numbers, if you remove the 125,000 from the current annual cost, we're roughly 260,000 a year is what we're already spending. When you look at the contract price, we would have to come up with about 350,000 a year in years 3, 4, and 5 to cover the difference. Because we're already
350,000 more?
350,000 more than what we're already putting into what we're already paying currently as just a way of doing business.
Which is roughly 3 FTEs of officers.
Yes, that's correct.
And so, okay, so that you were looking at, if your ERP right now is 200,000 a year, so you're looking at 550,000 a year for your ERP to fund this.
Correct. So those ERP funds, instead of going to the ERP, would just go towards the subscription.
Right, go to subscription, and then of course in year 6, if we're going to renew this, whatever the new price is, that ERP has to increase to whatever that new price is going to be every single, or the subscription. Okay.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, I've got lots of the questions, but I'll give someone else time to ask some questions.
Okay, Councilman Rogers?
You might have heard we had a little snafu with our water software a couple of years ago, just a little. But so that's kind of my question. What does that transition plan look like for the software and the hardware? We roll from our old clunky stuff into this new system. What does the plan look like? Who's going to oversee this? What kind of support services are we going to have around it? Kind of guarantees?
Yeah, I'll refer to him here in a second, but I think I can hit the first part of that is the current system we have is so defunct that it really, we just walk away from it. The benefit and one of the attractive things for us with going with Axon was that, we've received support from IT on this matter, is that it removes a large portion of the IT workload from our local IT, and it puts it into the Axon infrastructure. And what Axon's done is they've repeated that in every department, every state. It's the same infrastructure, it's the same system. And so it's their services, their techs who will maintain that and help walk us through the setup and the utilization. And I'll let Jared add to that.
Maybe just one addition to answer a previous question. Axon's been in business for over 30 years. They were founded in 1994. Every account that signs on with Axon is assigned a strategic deployment manager. So they have a project manager. They work with the agency to ensure that when we implement tasers, when we implement body cameras in the fleet, it's all in the agency's timeline. All this is done on site. So it's not only installation, but also training and setup. Once that's complete, then they hand the agency off to the customer success manager or the CSM, which then takes them from there. So more of an on-site installation and training, followed on by continued customer support with that dedicated manager.
Sure, Councilor Boyer.
So I've done this in the past many, many times, but you have a new system and he has an old system. Is there any interface between that so that you can suck some of the information out into the new, or do you start fresh day one?
That's a great question. We can ingest the old digital evidence into our system, in our cloud-based system, if desired, so that if they search by case number or an incident number, they could see both Axon's digital evidence, maybe legacy. What we mainly do is work with the organization, what we call retention categories. So how long they want to retain the evidence. That's usually by policy, either locally or by the state. And so that's normally what we do the most to ensure that how long they hold on to this based off the state statute flows into the new system. So that's the closest thing we do to match their current workflow is how long they hold on to something. A murder versus a traffic stop has different policies of how long they hold on to it. So we ensure that we match that to make it more in compliance.
Is there an additional cost for that?
No, sir.
So we did part of this is we're purchasing an extra expansion of data. And so one thing to note about this is there's kind of two tiers here. If there's anything Axon original, so anything from the body cams, anything from the in-cars, it's unlimited data storage amounts. Once we get into the third-party data, the photos, the surveillance, we do have to pay for that. Part of this contract has roughly 20 terabytes of space for us. Our current server sits at about 50 terabytes. When we look back at how much and how far back that goes, we've basically kept everything third party for a very long time. And so some of the discussions we've had is that we need to go back and clear that out through a retention schedule. And we don't want to bring over stuff that we don't need that is creating extra problems. IT has a plan right now that we've talked about for transition, which we could leave all of our current third-party digital evidence where it's at on its server because of the life of the available server for the next 5 or 6 years, where we could keep all of that stuff there, still have it accessible, and then on day one, we just move forward with an appropriate retention schedule and clean data going into that extra server space. And our local IT would manage the server for the old stuff for access until that falls off. As you guys know, as we further increase time from the case, our likelihood of having to access that information decreases as well. So our need to sustain that server beyond 5 or 6 years after we clean it up and drop stuff off the retention schedule, that amount of data storage should drastically decrease.
Okay. Councilor Gulick, you haven't had anything. I just encourage this council to wrap up soon.
Yeah, very nice, thorough presentation, Captain Woolley, and appreciate it all sounds very good. And I, how it streamlines workflows, increases efficiency, and I could see that it had the equivalent of freeing up some more time for patrol on the street as well as these other techs. So I think I'm all on board, just making sure we do the due diligence and not just from references provided by the vendor. We've, just an example, in our office, we've had 4 different vendors of project management software in the past. We love the one we have now. We had 2 others that were promised all kinds of things that we just could not make really work in the end. And so I think it was really helpful for us to be able to talk to others, get an unvarnished view of how things have really worked. But what you presented sounds very good.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Neese, if you could prioritize whatever is the most important.
Yeah, just to clarify, so you said the plan, because I knew, as I was reading, it did say that if you use third-party data, there's a cost to it. So you said no, but then you said yes, that includes, the contract has a cost already included.
The cost is already included in this contract.
Okay.
That is correct.
And we expect over time that could be reduced because you could, or are you moving well, let me ask you this. Are you planning on moving all the legacy data over? Okay,
No.
so
The intention right now is to move none of the legacy data over because our IT believes that we can maintain the data set that we have.
okay, that's fine. And then you'll have a retention schedule that automatically just reduces the data that's not needed in the new system so that you don't have to mess with it.
That is correct.
All right, and then you mentioned the Verizon 93,000 credit. Where's the cost of Verizon if it's about 50,000 a year? Is that in a different fund somewhere, or is that coming out of this?
So we're currently inside every one of our officers' MDTs, their mobile data terminals, the computers that they have in their cars. The city is already paying almost $40 a month for 5G access to connect their computers to the network.
Okay, so it's already a cost that's not going to increase any more than what you already.
Correct, and our plan is to take those access points, and they are now going to go into the cradle points, and the car will turn into basically a Wi-Fi bubble. And then there's another software resource with IT that we do like an on-demand SIM card. So when the computer leaves all network access, then it'll fire up. But the costs across the board will actually be a savings because we have we have fewer cars than we do computers, basically, essentially. So
And then real quick, if we, how many units are we getting? And is it for what the council has approved, 177? Is that the? So is it 177 units or is it less?
So for cars, it's 106 fleet units. That has everything that we have today. For the body cams and the officer safety package, it's 145. And that covers us, which is short of what we have. But we also have like body cams issued to detectives, plainclothes units, that kind of stuff. So as we add officers and get to them, we will need to add more packages to this.
Okay.
And the cost of that is about $200 per month, roughly.
$200 a month every time you add an officer.
So since this is a cooperative purchasing agreement, there's an addendum with this that Axon put a couple of things in there for us. One of the clauses was a pricing package for 18 months. That way, when we add new stuff on at 18 months, they guarantee the price that we paid when we entered it. But after that 18 months, we go into their pricing structure that is current. The other thing that they had put in there was basically a non-appropriations clause. So at any point in time that council doesn't approve a budget for this line item, there's not appropriations for it, and then we work with them to figure out what do we have to give back, or what types of services do we do to get the price down to where we can fund it if we can't find funding in years 3, 4, 5.
So that would be exit strategy would be if we decide not to fund it, then
that is
we'd
correct.
have to work with some kind of settlement or something.
And I believe in the non-appropriations clause, that's just kind of a way out for us. And then we just come to another agreement that says, okay, well, what can you afford? And this is just the equipment and the services that you get for that price.
So if it doesn't work, we can tell them, thank you very much, but we're fine going somewhere else.
And yeah.
Okay, thank you. I do hope it works. I really look forward. There's a lot of promises. And so I, again, like everyone said, I think this is something that's long overdue. So I look forward to seeing this work well.
Councilmember Boyette, last word. And then we still haven't had public comment. I don't know if there's any public comment.
So one thing we've learned through history is to have beta testing. You're not going to take every policeman and give them one of these. Are you going to do a handful and test it for a while to make sure everything works before we run it out to everybody else?
So we have 2 vehicles that are supposed to be getting outfitted with some test devices here in the very near future. And I believe we can do body cams with that as well.
Okay. Let's open it for public comment. Is there any public comment on item number 3?
Kevin Else, 4235 Bruce Avenue. Does the fire department use any technology? And does it integrate into this by any chance if they do?
This is the police department only, but
I mean, they got traffic accidents, structure fires. I just didn't know if there was technology that, if they're using it, would it integrate? Don't know.
So to my knowledge, I think the cradle points, the fire engines do have cradle points in them that help with Wi-Fi connection. One of the benefits that we look at, I didn't cover, is that one of the problems we have on these large incidents, barricades, these high risks where we got lots of officers in the areas, is our ability to share information and network. And with these cradle points, every car being a Wi-Fi bubble, when we're at a command post or we're in an area consolidated, that increases our network access for communication, video transfers, and to speak of the body-worn cameras, one of the features that they have is a live remote view and communicate with the officer. And so any commander can log in at any point and view and see and hear what the officer does see. So there is some integration in terms of networking with the fire department, but in terms of Axon products with like the digital evidence and video stuff, they're not using any of that technology yet.
okay. We'll close the public comment period. No one else has come to the podium. We will move on. Captain, what are the odds of our getting a handy commission if we could get the Yellowstone County Sheriff's Office signed up with this? Because if I'm the prosecutor in the county attorney's office, I don't want to be dealing with a completely different evidence retrieval system if it's coming out of the sheriff's office versus the Billings Police Department.
So I believe those conversations are occurring right now. Councilmember Neese, you asked about who all is involved in this. Specifically, one of the requests came from the county attorney's office that we use this system. They dislike our current system and what the future is, and so we have done our homework with our stakeholders. We have received the support from virtually everybody on on a transition for this.
Great, we'll expect to see that, Commission. So, thanks very much. All right, very good. I think that concludes item number 3. Chris, anything in the way of upcoming agenda items that you wanted to highlight for us?
We've got some critical land use decisions coming up next week. If you look back at the zoning commission meetings, they help you prep for there. And then ultimately, you saw the CIP for the second time getting it adopted. So as Andy covered, $500+ million there. And all this stuff is great. It does cost money. So for public safety levies, add technology to the equation in addition to the vehicle. We used to just think about the officer and the vehicle. Now I'd add technology to it. Thanks.
Very, very good. Any council discussion? Any public comment on non-agenda items? Any public comment on non-agenda items? No one's coming forward. We'll close the public comment period. That means we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.